Listening to the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
Welcome back, Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. Bucks, Burlington, and Mercer Counties, 920 a.m. or worldwide on the web, 920thejersey.com. Coming to you live from the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studios. And time in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studios is 4:18. We're getting ready for the AllStar Game tonight. And now joining us on the hotline is a man that played in the AllStar Game in 1997, and that's former big league pitcher, now doing a tremendous job for Comcast Sportsnet in the Bay Area, and that's Shawn Estes. Shawn, how you been? Thanks for coming on the show today.
I've been good, Zach. My pleasure. Looking forward to tonight. Should be a fun game to watch.
It should be, and I understand that you're on vacation in Northwest Michigan. Why are you going on vacation in Northwest Michigan? What's happening up there?
Well, for one, it's a lot cooler than it is in Phoenix, Arizona. About 40 degrees cooler, so that's one reason why. And my wife's father lives up here, Northwest Harbor Springs area. Just beautiful up here. Nice part of the country to be in this time of year. 75, 80 degrees. Can't beat it.
Yeah, I love traveling. I went to San Francisco this year for the Super Bowl. I also went out to Seattle this year and also Oregon. So when you were traveling in the MLB, though, going from city to city, what was your favorite place to travel on with the big league club?
Well, I loved going to Chicago and New York. I like the big cities. I was fortunate enough to play in both those cities as a player. But I always had more fun as a visiting player going to those cities. You know, you have the hotel, you get in. Chicago had a lot of day games, so you were able to enjoy a little bit of the restaurants, the nightlife that the city had to offer. Obviously, New York, doesn't matter what time you finish up. There's a place to go eat, have a drink, or whatever it might be. A lot of culture in those cities. I always was one of those guys that would, from time to time, even rent a car or venture out in a cab and check out different things of the city, museums, things like that, just to kind of experience the whole city. But as far as just the vibe, the energy, the Chicago, New York, scene can't be beat, in my opinion.
So in our market that we're here in Princeton, we have a lot of New York fans, and we also have a lot of Philadelphia fans. So we heard about what you had to say about New York. Let's say if you were driving around in Philadelphia, would you get a cheesesteak? What would you do in Philly?
Yeah, get a cheesesteak. That was always the thing to do. Gino's, I think, was the place there. I don't really know a whole lot more about that. The thing about Philly is that there was always a lot of night games, and the day games were usually getaway days. So you were leaving after the game, so you weren't able to really go experience that part of it. But late night cheesesteak for sure. Other than that, kick around the city. We stayed at a different place most of the time. And being in the National League West for a lot of my career, we only went into Philly one time a year, and usually it was for 3 days, so I wasn't really able to experience that as much. But, playing for New York, got to go to Philly a few times, fun city, tough crowd, tough crowd to play in front of. But, the easiest way to shut them up is to go out there and pitch well against their team. So I always felt like I had a lot more incentive to do well in Philly. And if I didn't do well, I heard from the fans. Worst place in the world to warm up, though, because the fans sit there on the rail, especially that new ballpark. They're right on top of you. Even in the old ballpark in Veterans Stadium, they were there as well. And you could hear all of them. And they had a pretty good idea, your resume, and they always seemed to find all the negative things that you've done in your career and hammer you with those while you're trying to get ready for a game. Would get in your dome a little bit from time to time. So never a fun place to go into unless you actually pitched well against them and then you had the last laugh.
That's great, as we're talking to Shawn Estes, who joins us right now. So you played in an All-Star Game in 1997, and it was during one of your best years of your career where you finished off 19-5, a 3.18 ERA. Take me back in the middle of the season when you found out you were going to the All-Star Game and what you remember about going to that All-Star Game in 1997.
Well, there was a lot to remember about that year in general. Coming off of almost a 100-game lost season for the Giants, there wasn't a lot of expectations coming into the 97 season, but Brian Sabian went out and got a lot of new players, and so we didn't really know what to expect out of that team. But we had a lot of guys that had career years that year. In the first half, we got off a nice little run, and the guys that and we finally found out who we really were around the All-Star break, and a team that we felt that could win the National League West and maybe even run in the postseason. To me, and I was a big part of that, being able to make the All-Star team. So that was definitely something I remember. One of the years I remember the most in my career. And then, just to be rewarded. I know it's a mid-season award, and you'd like to, finish on top and finish the season, strong. But to be recognized, at that point in the year, obviously my first full season was a great honor. And I remember Dusty Baker coming up to me in the dugout, of all places. I had pitched against the Rockies my last start of the first half, and I ended up 12-3, I think, with I don't remember what the ERA was, but Dusty came up to me and said, hey, just want to let you know you made the All-Star team, and it's in Cleveland, and congratulations. I'll never forget that. And then going to Cleveland with Dusty Baker and Rod Beck and Barry Bonds, those are the other two guys that made the team. Dusty was asked to be a coach on that team, so he went as well. Getting a picture with those guys, still have that up in my home. Being able to pitch in that game, unfortunately, it didn't go well.
Yeah, I know you had the loss. I wasn't going to bring that up to you, but you did it yourself, so, there you go.
Well, you know what? I'll bring it up only because the game didn't matter then. Now it does, so it would have stung a lot worse, giving up the game, losing home run, nowadays. But, Sandy Alomar Jr. hit the home run. We lose, the National League loses by a run. I think it was the seventh inning I pitched, and he hit a changeup, 3-2 changeup out of the ballpark. He ends up winning the MVP in his home ballpark, and he had a magical year for the Indians that year. So I guess it couldn't have gone to a better guy, and I just thought the experience was great. I don't think Bobby Cox, he was the manager of that team, he was too happy with it. I think everybody has a lot of pride, even though the games didn't matter as much then, to go out and win for your league. And I remember seeing him. I was with my family after the game. We were at a bar someplace, I don't remember, a hotel bar, and I went to the bar to grab a drink, and he said, would you throw Alomar there at 3-2? And I said, threw a changeup. He goes, okay, good. He's like, I wouldn't have been real happy if you threw him a fastball in that situation. And I was like, that was the one time he talked to me the whole time in the playoff or the All-Star festivities, and I thought he was gonna ream me. I didn't expect that. I expected a little pat on the back, but he's a competitor. That's why he was so good as a manager in his career, Hall of Fame career. He didn't matter what game he was managing. He wanted to win. He wanted to know what I threw Alomar, and he didn't want me to throw him. He said he thought it might have been a fastball, but I said, no, I threw him a 3-2 changeup. He just did a good job, went down and hooked it out of the ballpark. He said, okay. So I don't want you ever giving in that situation. So. But it was a great experience. I think an experience that every guy should. Because early in my career, I thought, I'll probably be in a few of these. Well, I never got back to another one. So it's really difficult to go out there and do, what Madison Bumgarner's done, thus far in his career, and pretty much be a mainstay in the All-Star game. Buster Posey, what he's doing, Johnny Cueto making a couple. He's a couple of the Giants that have been there more than once. So, don't ever want to take that for granted.
Well, I wish that Bobby Cox was still managing the All-Star game, because I was reading something this morning that Jose Fernandez said if he got the opportunity to pitch against Big Papi, who's playing in his last All-Star game, he would groove in some fastballs to him, 3 straight, to try to get Big Papi to get a big hit in his final All-Star game. And this decides home field advantage for the World Series, Shawn. Now it's just an event. The players don't take it seriously anymore, and the stakes matter more than ever. I think it's stupid with that rule in the MLB.
Yeah, and I agree. I totally agree on that. But until it gets changed, I think as a player you have to take a little bit more pride in it. It could make the difference. And if you're, especially Jose Fernandez being on a team right now that is by no means out of the race, they're right in the thick of the race. And if
they're in the wild card right now, the second spot.
Exactly. And if they make a couple additions, before the deadline and continue to pitch like they have and have the bullpen and get the offense production that they've had, they have a chance to be the wild card team. So you have a chance to get in the postseason, and you got a guy talking about how I'm going to groove 3 pitches to Big Papi. Well, not only are your teammates probably sitting at home shaking their head, but the rest of the National League is as well, because there's no to me, all the sports, I think baseball is the biggest home field advantage, and mainly being that you get the last at bat. And if you're going to Game 7 and you got a tie ball game and you got the last at bat of the World Series, you want it to be that's where you want to be home and getting that last at bat. So I think it makes a huge difference, and I would go out there and try to win that game if I'm the National League. And if you feel that way, fine. But I don't think you should go out and publicize that.
So you were a kid in 1997, and you're walking into this clubhouse, the National League clubhouse. You see Mike Piazza, who would eventually go on to be one of your teammates. You see Maddox and Pedro. What was that like, walking into the clubhouse and just seeing some of these all-time greats for you at such a young age?
Well, that was the coolest part of it. These guys were all established, well, not every one of them, but a lot of the guys were established major league pitchers that have made multiple All-Star games, won Cy Youngs, been in World Series, guys that, coming up through high school and the minor leagues, guys that I looked up to. And now I'm in the same clubhouse rubbing elbows with them. So that was, to me, the coolest part of it. Going in and you walk in on the first day, you're signing. It feels like you're signing for 6 straight hours and stuff that they have in the room, and you got to go in and sign 1 million balls and bats and helmets and everything. But everybody's doing it, and Pedro's signing and he's cracking jokes, and they all know who I was. I thought it was pretty cool that they all congratulated me and knew who I was. And the first half that I had, even though I had only played at that point a total of a year in the major leagues. So that to me was the coolest part of the whole experience, was just being in the presence of so many great players and future Hall of Fame players at that.
What's the most bizarre thing a fan's ever asked you to sign? I've always wondered that when we talk about guys signing autographs.
Oh, gosh. Well, I have to think about that. There's been a lot of weird things that I've had asked signed. I guess more than anything, it's probably the things that I don't know, like things with Sharpies on like people's skin, like their back, or especially the women. Yeah, I've had some women out.
I know where you're going there.
Yeah, I just always think that's a little bit odd. I don't know. Other than the baseball card, the bat, the helmet, I can't really recall a lot of things. You get some weird things in the mail as well. I'm trying to think back. I've had some interesting things come through the mail as well.
Shawn Estes joins us right now on the hotline. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, The Jersey. So you were talking about how you went to the All-Star game with Rod Beck and also Barry Bonds. And I look at Barry Bonds as one of the best power hitters of all time. He's the best power hitter that I've ever seen. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame, but he does have that asterisk with all the steroids and everything. What's your view of Barry Bonds since you're able to play with him as a teammate of his?
Are you asking me if I think he should be in the Hall or just in general?
Just in general, your view of him. I've wondered about that with guys that played with him.
Yeah. Well, Barry's an interesting, personality, as you know, and it's well documented and everything. I think you read, I wouldn't say everything, but a lot of, if you're getting pretty consistent opinions of a guy around the board, it's probably that they're true. And he'll be the first to tell you that he was a little surly as a player, that he could be a little moody at times. Barry was very focused on being the best, and he felt that, and he had a very high level of confidence. He had people that were constantly wanting something from him, and so he was a little bit, I'd say, probably paranoid of that, of people taking advantage of him and his name and his autograph, and he, to the point where he would cut up his batting gloves after he used them and throw them in the trash so nobody would get him, or he broke a bat. Mike Murphy, the clubhouse manager, would have to give him the bat back so they weren't being sold. There was just a lot of things that you're just kind of, well, why would you need to do that? So, and as a player, there was times where Barry could be very engaging. He had a big personality. He could be funny. He could be fun. He'd join us for some team dinners from time to time, and he was pleasant to be around. But when in the clubhouse, there was just times where I think it was more because he was so focused on the game, getting ready for the game, and very into what he needed to do to be good that night, that he could come across as not a very nice guy. A little short, a little moody. Like I said, be nice to you one day, next day you pass him in the clubhouse, you don't exist. maybe not acknowledge you. And also I feel like the way, as a teammate, you always he's under the microscope based on the fact that, he is the superstar of your team, so you're always watching his every move. And you watch how he'd treat other players or other people, the media, clubhouse attendants around the league. And there were certain guys he really liked and certain guys he didn't like. And, he wasn't fake about it. So with that being said, I would have him on my team every day. I would pick him number one. If I was a captain of a team and I had the whole league to choose from, I would pick him as my teammate because, when you go out there to play every day, he's going to go out there and give you a good chance to win, and he can carry you on his back. So I felt like to have him in the middle of your lineup, the presence that he had, and then for a long time, very good defensively as well. He was the best player in the game, hands down. Best hitter I've ever seen, player all around, stealing bases, hitting for power, hitting for average, defensively. I guess the only knock would be his arm strength, but he played left field, didn't have to have strong arm. And, other than that, I'd take him. I'd take all the, I'd take the attitude, because he's not a guy if you don't want to hang out, you don't have to hang out with him. He's not going to make your life miserable, but you just wished he would have been a little bit more, be a little bit better teammate, I guess, because I played with some superstars too. They were good teammates. Luis Gonzalez being one of them, Todd Helton being another one. Piazza could be a good teammate, but a little bit more like Bonds because he was very focused as well. I saw both. Sammy Sosa could be a lot like Bonds, but at the same time, those are the guys you want to go to the trenches with because they can help you win, and that's what really what it comes down to is these guys give you a good chance to win.
Piazza is the greatest hitting catcher of all time, and you know it better than anybody, being able to play with him for a bunch of years in New York, and he meant so much to the Mets franchise. He had to wait a little bit, but he's finally going into the Hall of Fame. That's going to happen next weekend. How about your former teammate and Mike Piazza going to the Hall of Fame?
Well, yeah, just happy for him. Great hitter. Like you said, the best hitting catcher of all time. It's going to be hard, I think. Looking at the catchers now, just the amount of home runs he hit, RBIs, big hits, clutch, hit for average. Just a strong human being. Hit a ball a long way. Very difficult to pitch to when he was hot. Offensively, he's as good as it gets. He was serviceable behind the plate. Obviously, that was the knock, is him defensively, and a lot of people thought maybe he should have played another position later on in his career. Tough time throwing runners out. But other than that, just a guy that you wanted on your team as well. But, I'm happy for him, and, I'll be watching in a week.
And really, when you take a look back at Mets history involving yourself, everyone remembers you trying to throw at Roger Clemens and the pitch going behind him. And we've talked about this before. And earlier in the season for the Mets, Noah Syndergaard was ejected from a game from throwing behind Chase Utley. Did you happen to see that this year? And did it bring up some memories of when you were trying to plunk Roger Clemens?
Well, I thought I'd get a lot more reaction and comments in regard to my situation after I did see the Syndergaard deal. I didn't get as many as I thought I would, but I did. I got some guys on Twitter, saying some things. But for sure it brought up some old memories. I don't remember exactly the situation. I don't remember how he got ejected, if he threw at him once and then threw behind him another time, and that's why I don't remember that. You probably know better than I do. Yeah,
just threw behind him and the ump ejected him. It was ridiculous by the umpire.
Okay, so there was nothing. There was no warnings or anything.
Nope.
Right. So that would have been like me throwing behind Clemens and then getting thrown out of the game, which didn't happen. Obviously, I think everybody knew what was at stake going into that game, even the umpires. So I think that they realized that there was going to be a warning issued first, which should have been with Syndergaard's case. But, I think if you even ask Syndergaard, it's not easy even when you want to drill somebody to drill them. It's hard to do, especially when the hitter knows it's coming. It's one thing when the hitter's digging in and he's ready to try to, take a fastball away the other way. So, he's got, he's not thinking anything about a fastball inside or at him where they can't get out of the way. But when they know it's coming, they have a little bit better chance to get out of the way. But, I looking back to that situation, I know we've talked about it. Obviously the best case scenario would have been that I actually got him the first time and everybody would have been okay with it. Especially the way the game ended up. I ended up having a pretty good game and hitting a home run off of Clemens, which I thought was pretty sweet revenge. But I think that Mets fans, still wouldn't have been happy. They wanted to see, him carried off on a stretcher, blood coming out of his ears.
You're exactly right, because Roger Clemens is one of my least favorite baseball players of all time, and I was sitting in the 46K section at Shea Stadium for that game, and you had the fan running on the field, you hitting a home run, Piazza hitting a home run. It was just great. And you take a look at this current group of Mets right now, as we're talking to Shawn Estes, wrapping up with him. The Mets have a really good rotation going into the year, but now they're dealing with some injuries. Matt Harvey's done for the year. Matz and Thor are in 110%. What's your take on the Mets since we're at the break right now in the AllStar game?
Well, I think that their pitching is really what's going to keep them afloat. And, obviously last year we saw how good you can be in the postseason. Offensively, it was about getting big hits, but it really was all about the starting pitching and how well those guys pitched in the playoffs with DeGrom, Syndergaard, Harvey. Those three were phenomenal. So you're going to need those guys to be healthy. Obviously, Harvey's out for the year. So I think, to me, Syndergaard is the big guy. I think he's the guy that he has to, he has to be the guy that's 100%. He's got to be the guy at the front of that rotation. I talked about him a lot when the Mets came in to play the Giants, this year, doing the pre- and post-game show. I talked about, Syndergaard being, one of those guys, top 3 pitchers in the league. So a guy that's going to be an ace for a long time, strong kid, that can throw a lot of innings. So to see the injury thing happen to him this year is a little bit concerning, especially when you're dealing with the elbow. So I think he needs to be 100%. I think that, Matz obviously needs to be better, and, and DeGrom, big 3 right there. So I think if Matz can get it together, obviously you got Bart, who's, father time, will do what he does. But as far as power arms in the playoffs, that to me is what gets you to the promised land, the Giants are going to have it with Bumgarner, Cueto, and Samardzija, and they're going to be tough, the big 3. So I think you got to have 3 power arms to take you into the playoffs and see what you can do. So I think it's big for them to get those guys 100%.
Now, last one before we let you run, and you were able to cover the Giants, obviously, all year long for Comcast Sportsnet, and really when you look at what happened with the Philadelphia Phillies in San Francisco, they did play well. They didn't win the series, but when Johnny Cueto hit Maikel Franco, it really woke up this Phillies team. But the only, one of the big players that are struggling for the Phillies is the pitcher, the young Aaron Nola, and they skipped his last start. They're going to have him throw a simulated game as he's had a lot of concise starts in his last few outings. Just being someone that's been an all-star in this league and pitched for many years, what would be some advice you would give to Aaron Nola, who's struggling right now in really his first real big league season, where he's had some highs and then he's had this stretch of a lot of lows?
Well, I haven't seen him pitch a lot, but the times I have seen him pitch, he's actually pitched really well. So I haven't seen his struggles. I see just the kid's got great stuff. I mean, that's what kind of stood out. And, that's what stood out first and foremost. He's got electric stuff on. He's got no-hitter stuff when he's on. And when I saw him pitched, I think he might have had a no-hitter through 4 innings. But I know personally, as a young pitcher, there's going to be struggles mentally. It's a grind. You have to maintain focus. You can't let doubt creep into your mind. When you start to have some negative results, you can't start believing that that's going to be the case. You can't try to make a big fix. What you have to do is you have to really just keep it simple, and you have to go out there and rely just on stuff and being aggressive with that stuff. And typically that's going to get you better results. I think what happens is when you have a guy And even though you're young and strong and you feel like you're 100% every time you take the mound, there's times where you go out there and you just physically don't feel as strong, and physically your breaking ball isn't breaking like it does normally, and your fastball location isn't there, and so you start to doubt yourself a little bit, because it's not there, and then you give up some hits, and then you start to pick and try to get too fine, and you start walking guys, and it kind of snowballs, and then you lose confidence for a start or two, and you can't allow one start to carry over into the next. And I know it's hard to do, but you really do have to focus on, mentally you have to go and you have to forget about what just happened. You have to focus on making pitches, period. It's as simple as that. It's just going out there and making a quality pitch and doing it with conviction. And then everything else will take care of itself. You can't believe the negative things that are happening around you. And it seems like when you start to struggle, a lot of things negative start happening. You don't get the calls from the umpires. Your defense starts kicking the ball a little bit. You go out and you pitch well in a game, but your offense doesn't score any runs, and so you end up getting a loss. But you pitched well. But it's a negative result because you lose the game. So you have to stay with the task at hand, and that's just going out there and making quality pitches. And then you start getting results, start getting your confidence back, and then you start rolling again. So that's hopefully what they're telling him, because he's got a great arm, and I think he can be really good in this league for a long time. So, and he's a guy that their teammates really want to count on. They believe that they have a good future with these young arms that they have in their rotation, but they want someone to be able to step up and be the ace. And the ace is going to be the one that's strong enough mentally that can do all those things that I just mentioned. But it doesn't happen overnight. It takes some failures and some successes and some sustained success as well.
Hey, Shawn, this was a whole lot of fun today. Thanks so much. Enjoy the family time up in Northwest Michigan, and I appreciate you giving us some time today on the Zach Gelb Show. Thanks so much, my friend.
All right, Zach, anytime.
There is Shawn Estes joining us on the hotline. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. A big round of applause for one Shawn Estes. Wow.